Hey everyone, John here from the Cast and Spear podcast, and this is the final part of our three-part series on how to make a DIY pole spear yourself, brought to you by Dustin over at Gatku Pole Spears. He has built thousands of them, so he knows exactly what he's talking about, and in this episode, he's going to show you why it's important to make sure you have very strong, sturdy connections, and why you might need to use a lathe, so you might need to grab a six-pack of beer and throw it over to a buddy to help you with some of the more intricate parts. But before we get started, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast. We're getting a lot more people listening in, so I want to say thank you for those who have already shared it with their friends, and it's been really helpful and really inspiring me to keep finding awesome guests to share with you. All right, let's please welcome back to the show, Dustin McIntyre.
Construction-wise, gluing things together is fine. I personally used West Systems two-part epoxy on the Gatku product line to attach the carbon graphite into the aluminum holes. If you're tapping a hole into aluminum and you want to use a set screw, there's certain Loctite thread lockers and stuff that would work just fine. Just make sure that it's going to assemble, come apart, do fit, form, and function before you actually use it. You might need some machining. More than likely, you're going to need something to be machined, especially if you're doing a multi-construction, like a two-piece or a three-piece pole spear, where you got threaded links. You're going to need to know somebody who knows how to run a lathe, who can tap a hole for you, maybe single-pointed OD thread or something like that. Keep it simple there too, as much as you can. Instead of actually creating a male thread, that's what I mean when I say single-pointing a thread on a lathe, which is kind of more of an advanced machinist capability. Tap a hole instead and put a set screw in there, so then the two pieces can join. If you have access to a machine shop and you know how to use a machine, great. A lot of times you could get the job done with a hand drill. Sometimes, if you're real careful enough, crafty enough.
I will say this though, if you're going to use a hand drill, if that hole's just slightly out of concentricity or just slightly out of straightness compared to the shaft that you're drilling, and you're connecting something very long that sticks out of that hole, it's going to broadcast your error. So all that being said, unless it's like a cross hole that you're using to attach a wishbone on a band, I would stay away from using hand drills. I would stick to the lathe. Other times, if you just make a good friend with someone who knows how to run a lathe and can help you out with it, sometimes a six-pack of beer goes a long way. I will give you this warning. A lot of people think, I'm going to make this so it breaks down and I can fit it in my back pocket. Well, the more connections you have, a lot of times the weaker the pole spear will become, essentially creating a bunch of weak links. It's best if you can get away with a one-piece pole spear. But most people, they want it to break down in some way, especially on the longer spears. Just make sure that connection is the toughest spot of the pole spear, because it's going to usually receive the most beating. It was in the very first generation of Gatkus where we were having problems with the longer spears, receiving too much leverage against a half-inch to half-inch connection. And my fix was I had to add a coupler to that area. So what used to be the weakest part of the spear is now the strongest link, and I never have to worry about that. So you might find a weak link, and you might find a way to fix it. Structural integrity-wise, on the smaller diameter spears, it's always best if you could have a female fitting a male. It'll be a stronger connection. So if you could put a coupler on there, like I just spoke about, where it's just a sleeve where you could pin it and it helps support that threaded connection. Or if you can machine what's called a rabbet, which is like a shoulder that a shoulder on one end and a pocket on the other, or a counterbore on the other, and they fit together. That sometimes makes it a little bit stronger and helps align it. Just got to be careful with the smaller spears. The bigger spears, they could butt up end to end, and as long as the thread's big enough. With the Crist product line, for example, because it's such a big diameter, we have a really fat set screw that joins end to end, and it's a robust enough connection to where it doesn't need a shoulder. But on the smaller spears, definitely consider some sort of shoulder or sleeve to reinforce that connection. So hopefully that gives you enough information to at least get started, if not motivated to build your own pole spear one day. If you're stuck after listening to this podcast, feel free to give me a shout via email. That's Dustin@gatku.com. If I could help lead you even more into the right direction, help you with supplying you some bands for your new pole spear. feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. Love to see pictures of your build too. Nothing's more gratifying than finishing something from home. It's a great part of the process when you're talking about this primitive way of spearfishing. Nothing's more primitive than saying, I built that in order to take this fish and bring it home to the table with my family, right? So enjoy the process. And my hope is that you're going to create something that's going to last your lifetime.
And if you don't, I could sell you something that lasts a lifetime. So if you get frustrated or to a point where, man, I'm not going to finish this before my trip, or, contact me. Like I said, I've got Ferraris and I've got Dodge trucks and I've got stuff in between. So Dustin at gatku.com, and I could make sure I get the right gear in your hands. Otherwise, enjoy your build.
Well, that does it for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Big thanks to Dustin for taking the time out of his day and sharing with us this full and comprehensive 3-part series on how to build a pole spear. He's got me super jazzed and excited. I'm going to be building mine in the next month, and I hope you can follow along with that. And if you do find that you don't want to build one yourself and you want to get one from Dustin, go over to gatku.com and make sure you use the promo code John Cast and Spear, and he'll throw you in a free dive knife and some other cool goodies. So until next time, keep those lines tight, everyone. See ya.